Hello again, college football fans, and welcome back to Bama Randy. It's good to see all of you guys again, anybody that might be watching. I know there's probably not anyone, but that's okay because I really just do these for myself anyway. I haven't felt, like I said, compelled to do one of these in a while, just because I haven't. But I am today. Today is Sunday, September, the 16th, 17th, something like that. Anyway, it's the day after Alabama played South Florida in Tampa in that weird road game. Looking at the schedule last year, it looked like a weird road game. It was a weird road game. It didn't surprise me, the goings-on that happened all that much. The lack of scoring surprised me a little bit, but as the game went on and after the rain delay and everything and it ended, I was very happy with things that I saw towards the end of the game. And I understand what Nick Saban was doing. I heard a lot of talking heads, summoning that the sky is falling and the sky's falling and all that junk that they do. And I understand it. And they, but they acted as though they were coming from the perspective like they didn't know what Saban was doing. Like, the objective yesterday was for us to win by as many points as we could against South Florida. That was obviously not Saban's objective. If that had been his objective, he would have started Jalen Milroe, obviously, but he didn't. He wanted to see. It was an experiment game. Saban's done this kind of thing before, not very often, because usually everything's ready to go going into the season, most seasons. But, a season like this, we've seen it before. New coordinator on both sides of the ball. The defense, wasn't that worried about. Kevin Steele knows what's up, and it's Saban's defense anyway, and Steele knows Saban, Saban knows Steele, so that was probably a smoother transition. But with the new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, we were all, Bama fans that is, we're nervous going into this season from the off season. So it's no surprise that he's running these experiment games. Texas wasn't an experiment game. I think Saban knew he was going to go with Jalen for that entire game no matter what, because Saban knows, just like we all know, if there was a game that you pointed at, if you said, look, there's going to be a loss, or you have to pick a game to lose, Texas is obviously the game that you would pick. It's non-conference, it's early in the season, it's against a team that, we hope will have a decent record by the end of the season, so it won't look too embarrassing or too detrimental to our resume. Now, all that being said, I know exactly what everyone else knows right now, which is Alabama is not a college football playoff team right here and now. They haven't played like one in any of the first three games. First game, they looked good, but it was against trash, and some people might say that South Florida's trash, and they may be, but we weren't trying to be our best. We were trying to experiment and find out, tweaking, seeing what works. At least that was pretty obvious to me. I watched that Matt Berry, Paul Feinbaum show that they do on Sunday mornings. I really like it. I like both of those guys. Love Paul Feinbaum. But, any Bama fan that's on a ledge because of what you've heard from Paul Feinbaum, please just come on back in, rein it in, pump the brakes. Because Paul Feinbaum's job is to latch onto narratives and use hyperbole, as we all know and love that he can do. And he's one of the best in the business is what he does. As a matter of fact, I think he pretty much created his job, because I don't know too many people that do exactly what it is that he does in the world of sports. But he's great at it, whatever it is that he does. But his job is to latch onto these things and to say things like, my friends in Tuscaloosa tell me that this reminds them a lot of 1982, which was Bear Bryant's last year, and retirement and the end of the Dynasty and all that kind of stuff. But Matt Berry said something that caught my attention. He said, I'm about to say something that we haven't said in 17 years, Saban's tenure at Alabama, and that is that Alabama is in trouble. Well, or Alabama has trouble or something to that effect, and that's just not true. We said it, and Saban has alluded to this in his pressers going up to this week against South Florida and after the loss to Texas about how it happened, and he couldn't remember the exact day, but I can remember the years and the times. It was 2000. He's talking about 2015, but it actually happened similarly in 2014 and 2015. 2014 was the first year after A.J. McCarron, kind of like this year is our first year after Bryce Young, two of the most decorated quarterbacks in the history of the program. And 14 was also Kiffin's first year. So just like this year, brand new offensive coordinator. And we had everybody thought Jacob Coker, the transfer from Florida State, was going to come in and be the guy, but he obviously didn't develop the way that Saban and the coaching staff wanted him to that off season. So it wound up being Blake Sims, who's similar to Jalen Milroe, running guy, looks more like a running back, not that great of a passer, but he obviously wound up becoming the starter that year and didn't look too good to start off the season. Lost at Ole Miss, obviously, and then there was a game right after that that reminds me very much of the game that we saw yesterday. It was a road game against Arkansas, not a very good Arkansas team. I believe that was Brett Bielema's first or second season. Not a great Arkansas team, a team that we were supposed to take care of easily, and we went into I think it was in Fayetteville, or it might have been in Little Rock and Memorial Stadium. I can't quite remember right now, but I think it was in Fayetteville. And it was a rainy day, just like yesterday. There was no delay, but it was a rainy, messy day, and we struggled offensively the entire game, never was able to put them away, and wound up sealing the game late with an interception, a lot like yesterday, and won the game 14-13. And oh my goodness, the sky was falling at that time, for sure, among fans. And what happened the very next week is we throttled Texas A&M 59-0 in the definition of dominance in action. If you want to look up that game on YouTube, you will see the definition of dominance in football in action in that game. It was a thing of beauty. And then we went on to win the rest of our regular season games and the SEC championship. And we did lose in a classic game against Urban Meyer's Ohio State Buckeyes team, which eventually went on to win the national championship that year. So, you know, things were looking bad that year. We didn't have a quarterback. I mean, Blake Sims will probably tell you that he's one of the lower level quarterbacks that Nick Saban has had since he's been at Alabama, but he had great games, looked good a lot of times. He did throw some interceptions and made some mistakes, but he did well enough to navigate us through that season all the way to an SEC championship and a college football playoff appearance. And then the very next year, which Saban has referenced, was the quarterback situation was much more similar this year in that we started different guys in the first couple of games, and it took obviously until that Ole Miss game, which we lost at home, to find the guy. Jacob Coker looked good in the end of that game, and he became the guy for the rest of the season. And you know, the media had definitely written our obituary after that loss to Ole Miss, and the fact that we hadn't won the national championship the year before and the year before that. And so, you know, the dynasty's over. And so, Matt Berry, I must disagree with you, and I can't fault you because you don't eat, live, and breathe Alabama football like I do. You have to, being in the job that you're in, pay attention to 100-something different college football teams. So I get to obsess from week to week and year to year about all this stuff, and I can remember this stuff more clearly. So this is not uncharted waters for Nick Saban at Alabama. He is older, and it very well may be his last year. I'm not going to say it's not, but I don't think anybody outside of his inner circle could possibly know that. And if it is, it's okay, Bama fans, because if Nick Saban is not the head coach at Alabama, I almost am willing to guarantee that they will continue to put on the crimson jerseys and go out there and play. Now, it may not look as good as it has or as good as we want it to, but that's okay. That's happened before, right? We've gone through some dark days as Crimson Tide fans, as much as people don't want to admit that. Now, so the history is on our side, that we are going to get this rectified and we're not going to just be a bad football team. Now, we may wind up losing 2 or 3 games this season, which, you know, nobody wants, especially not me, but even then that doesn't mean that the dynasty is over, because In one of my previous videos that I did a couple of years ago, I actually laid out, and I don't like the word dynasty because it's nebulous and nobody really clearly defines it. So I have defined a definition for me of what a dynasty in college football is, in Division 1A or FBS or whatever college football is. Now, and what that is, first of all, you have to win multiple national championships. It's got to be national titles. It can't be conference titles, division titles, or anything like that. It's got to be the big enchilada. If you can get 2 national championships within the traditional standard 4-year academic career of a student athlete, then that's the beginning of a dynasty. Like right now, we have 2 current dynasties in college football. Alabama's is not over yet, and I'll go on to finish my definition, and obviously Georgia has one. Now, in order to maintain the dynasty and it to continue to be a dynasty, then you have to win multiple national championships to start it within 4-year span. And then you have to at least win a national title every 4 years, within every 4 years after that, because that means that every standard academic career, a national championship has been won. And so if a player comes as a freshman and stays till a senior, they will have won a national championship. I think that is a pretty fair definition for a dynasty in college football. So, you know, we've been on the brink a couple of times. Obviously, 2013, 2014, we didn't win, but that's only 2 years. And then 16, we didn't win. 18, 19, we didn't win. And now we're on our longest drought under Saban since 2009 again. But even if we don't win this year, under my definition, the dynasty still isn't dead until next year comes and goes without a national championship as well. And we just saw a dynasty end last year with Clemson because they put together 2 national championships within a 4-year span, and 18 was their last championship, so that's 19, 20, 21, 22. 4 years, you're done. The dynasty's over for Dabo at Clemson, by my definition. So, and there's that. Now, in all honesty, we did look like hot garbage on offense yesterday, and I don't think anybody can deny that. But like I said, it was an experimental game. But I do think that we have definitely separated 1 and 2 from 3 in the quarterback. Tyler Buckner, I'm sorry, you're number 3. You're out of here. I never really understood why they got him in the transfer portal in the first place. Now, on to the rest of the team. Quarterback is a tricky situation. Who knows what's going to happen? Could be Milroe, could be Simpson, could be the longer hand, even the younger kid. He may get a look if they feel like they need to. I doubt it. And it could be a Tim Tebow, Chris Leak sort of situation like in 2006. I don't think Saban will do that. He's never done that at Alabama. And as far as I know, he's never done that anywhere that he coaches, but that's outside of my area of expertise. But, you know, it's just going to be what it is. It's going to work itself out. I wanted Ty Simpson all offseason. Now, there's a caveat to that. I would love for it to be Jalen Milroe, but Saban is not going to tailor his offense around a quarterback. He didn't do it for Jalen Hurts, which I think he should have, and he's not going to do it for Jalen Milroe either. And because that's the case, then I don't think it should be Jalen as the full-time quarterback, because they're going to require him to make these reads and these intermediate throws, and that's just not his game. I don't think he's going to develop in that area as much as we need him to. But I do think if they could tailor the offense around him, and we ran him a lot more, ran the running backs a lot more, just committed to the run more altogether, would be good. But Saban, you know, everybody likes to remember the early days of Saban in Alabama like we were some kind of Bo Schembechler early 80s Big Ten team or something, where it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, you know, 3 out of 4 plays, and that's just never been the case under Saban. Now, yes, there have been times that we have become very run-heavy, but that was only in times where he was forced to be run-heavy because the personnel at quarterback, or maybe there was an injury or something, just wasn't going to allow us to pass effectively. And or maybe there was just a game, like I remember the 2012 SEC Championship game against Georgia, Mark Richt's Georgia. You know, AJ was struggling in that first half, and we just couldn't get it going. And so we were forced to just start feeding Eddie Lacy and oh my goodness, TJ Yeldon just over and over again, and it was a thing of beauty. It was beautiful. In the 2009 championship season, there was a couple of games where we had to call on Mark Ingram to run the Wildcat over and over and over again, but it was just because McElroy was struggling, and we just had no other choice. He has to be backed into a corner before he goes heavy on either side. The last couple of years, he's gone pass heavy a lot of times because the personnel and the production out of the running game wasn't an option, so he just had to throw it every down. But Saban, from the very beginning, has always wanted balance. He said it over and over again offensively. He wants balance. He wants about as much running, about as much production out of the running game as he gets out of the passing game. That's what he wants. But sometimes he's forced to go the other way. And this may be one of those years that he's just forced to commit to the run game heavier than he wants to, but I'm always a fan of that. I would always prefer in a 3-down series, I want 2 of those 3 downs to be run plays always. But that's neither here nor there, especially what I want. But I'm just trying to give you guys some examples from history and just my knowledge of how Saban works as Alabama's head coach, to just say that this doesn't mean that things are necessarily going to be bad this year. They might. It may be Saban's last year. He may be running out of steam, for all I know. Who knows? But just the fact that we haven't looked all that great and we haven't settled on a quarterback yet does not mean that good things can't be coming just right around the corner, because, like I said, right after that Arkansas game that we struggled in, and right after the Ole Miss loss, and then sort of a struggle-y kind of a win, 34-0 win over Louisiana Monroe, which, you know, I know it doesn't sound like a struggle, but for Alabama it kind of is. That was sort of a tweaky experimental game, trying to make sure Jacob Coker was going to be ready for the stretch run. And then the next week after that, we thumped Mark Richt's Georgia team in Athens in the rain, in one of my favorite games. So all that I've said to say this, which is history does not favor Ole Miss next week. I'm terrified of Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss next week, based on what I've seen, and they very well could come into Bryant-Denny Stadium and embarrass us. And if they do, then obviously my expectations and the team's expectations are going to have to be readjusted. Right now, I feel like we're not a college football playoff contender today where I'm sitting. I do think that we are still an SEC West contender, and next week we will probably get to know for sure if we actually are, depending on how we perform against Ole Miss. But you heard it here first, folks. Don't be surprised if Ole Miss comes into Bryant-Denny Stadium next week and gets overwhelmed by the Crimson Tide. Thanks for watching.